Rumors spread faster than light in the galaxy, twisting through star systems and whispering across alien colonies. They claimed human men, ordinary, fragile-looking humans, were often underappreciated. Alien societies, with their elegant longevity and complex traditions, looked down on them, assuming humans lacked strength, wisdom, or resilience. Yet somewhere in the midst of these rumors, there were hints that human men possessed something rare, something unseen but undeniable. Jake Marshall had spent his life among humans and aliens alike, but he had never expected to hear such things. Docking on a city suspended above a glowing planet, he could see why the aliens dismissed humans. Towering figures with crystalline wings moved gracefully through the streets, their voices like music, their every action precise and confident. In comparison, he felt small, clumsy, ordinary. He had heard stories of alien admiration for human bravery, but he thought it was exaggeration, a myth. And yet, as he walked the bustling streets, he noticed subtle glances, curious, cautious, almost reverent. Some aliens paused when he passed. Some whispered behind their hands. He tried to ignore it, chalking it up to coincidence, but there was a strange tension in the air, as if he carried invisible weight. Then he saw her. She appeared suddenly, like a shimmer in the corner of his eye, moving with a fluid grace that made him stop in his tracks. Her skin gleamed like silver, her hair a cascade of colors shifting with every angle of light. Her violet eyes locked onto him with piercing clarity. She was beautiful in a way that words could not capture, striking, confident, alive. "Jake Marshall," she asked, her voice soft yet commanding, like wind over distant mountains. He froze. How did she know his name? "Yes, do we know each other?" he asked, uncertainty rising in his chest. Laughed, a sound like chimes in a breeze. It carried warmth yet authority. "Not yet," she said, "but I've been searching for someone like you." Her words struck him like an electric current. This was no ordinary alien curiosity. This was recognition. Someone had looked past the ordinary, past the assumptions about humans, and had chosen him. "You humans are remarkable," she continued, stepping closer. "Everyone underestimates you. You think you are small, weak, replaceable, but you carry courage quietly. You adapt, you survive, you rise when no one expects it, and that makes you extraordinary." Jake swallowed. He had spent years surviving mining accidents, navigating pirate sectors, and delivering cargo through asteroid belts. He had faced danger, yes, but it had never felt like bravery. At least, not compared to aliens who could manipulate matter or live hundreds of years. And now this alien woman was saying he was special. Tilted her head, examining him with intensity that made his heart race. "I claim you," she said, clearly and simply. "Not because I can, but because I choose to." The words sank into him, heavy and thrilling. He had read myths of alien rituals, of unions formed for political or social reasons, but this was different. This was not obligation. This was choice, recognition, desire. The city around them moved as usual. Floating vehicles glided past, translucent aliens hummed and shimmered, and light reflected off the buildings like liquid gems. Yet Jake felt frozen in a moment that was larger than any galaxy, larger than the noise and motion of the city. For the first time, he felt noticed in a way that mattered. Rumors had become reality. Human men, overlooked and underestimated, could still inspire awe. And now, Jake Marshall was at the center of that revelation, chosen not for his power, but for who he was. His chest tightened with emotion he had never allowed himself to feel. Pride, fear, joy, and disbelief tangled together inside him. Someone had seen the human value he had always doubted, and that recognition made him feel stronger than he had ever been. Extended her hand, and he realized that nothing in his life would ever be the same. Somewhere deep inside, a fire sparked, one born from acknowledgement, from respect, and from the sudden, astonishing truth that being human, just as he was, could matter to the galaxy. And for the first time in his life, Jake Marshall felt truly extraordinary. After his declaration, Jake walked through in a daze. The city had never felt so alien, yet it had never felt so alive. Every reflection on the floating towers seemed to whisper his name, every shadow seemed to reach for him. He couldn't stop thinking about her words. "I claim you because I choose to." The sentence echoed in his mind, repeated over and over until he felt both terrified and honored. He had always believed humans were insignificant in the galaxy. Surrounded by towering aliens who lived centuries and mastered unimaginable technologies, he had often felt invisible, like a single spark in a roaring fire. Yet had chosen him, not for politics, not for power, but simply because she saw him, saw value in someone others overlooked. The thought made his chest swell and his hands tremble at the same time. But admiration alone was complicated in an alien world. As Jake moved deeper into the city, whispers followed him. Some aliens watched with curiosity, some with skepticism. He realized that his claim wasn't just personal, it was public. And the idea that one human could matter so much to a high-ranking shook the social order. That evening invited him to a ceremony, a quiet, private ritual by floating waterfalls. The water glowed under alien bioluminescent light, cascading in patterns that no human mind could fully comprehend. She explained that in her culture, claiming someone was more than affection. It was a promise of protection, of respect, of shared destiny. "Most humans would be frightened," she said, her eyes reflecting the silver light of the water. "They think our worlds are impossible to enter. They think they cannot measure up. But you are different. You do not pretend to be what you are not, and that makes you worthy." Jake swallowed, feeling the truth in her words. He had never considered himself remarkable. He had survived, yes, but he had not imagined that mere survival could be something admired. Yet, standing before her, listening to her praise, he realized that humans had a strength aliens often ignored. The strength to endure, to adapt, and to care fiercely even when the odds seemed impossible. Still, doubt gnawed at him. Could he really belong here? Could he live in a world where he felt smaller than everyone else, where customs were alien and expectations far beyond human limits? He tried to voice his fear, but shook her head gently. "You underestimate yourself," she said. "It is not your size, your species, or your that matters. It is your courage. It is the fire you carry inside, the fire that makes you human. That is why I chose you." Her words ignited something inside him, a spark that pushed away fear and replaced it with resolve. He realized that his humanity was not a weakness. It was unique. It was powerful. And for the first time, he did not feel small. The night grew darker, the waterfalls glowing brighter. Extended her hand again, and this time Jake did not hesitate. He reached for her, feeling a surge of connection stronger than any he had known before. They stood together in silence, listening to the water, letting the moment settle into their bones. Yet even in this serenity, a question lingered. The galaxy had judged humans for centuries. Aliens dismissed them, overlooked them, thought them fragile. Could Jake truly survive the scrutiny of countless eyes watching his every step? Could he prove to the galaxy that human men were worth noticing, worth respecting, worth choosing? As pressed her hand gently against his, Jake realized the answer. He would not shrink. He would not hide. He would live and he would rise, not for her alone, but for every human who had ever been underestimated, overlooked, or ignored. The rumors had not been lies. Humans were remarkable. And now, with by his side, Jake understood that being human was not a disadvantage. It was a gift he would embrace fully, even if the galaxy doubted him every step of the way. That night, Jake walked back through the city, head held high, heart pounding. The whispers of doubt were still there, but they no longer frightened him. He had been claimed, recognized, and most importantly, he had begun to see his own worth. And for the first time in his life, Jake felt ready to show the galaxy exactly what a human man could do. Word of his claim spread quickly. Even though it was enormous, news traveled faster than Jake could have imagined. By morning, whispers followed him through every floating street, every marketplace, every glowing walkway. Some aliens were curious, others skeptical, and a few were outright hostile. They couldn't understand why a human, a fragile, short-lived creature, had been chosen by a being of influence and lineage. Jake felt the weight of every gaze. At first, he tried to ignore it, focusing on the city's beauty, the waterfalls that reflected rainbows in the alien sky, the towers that glimmered like crystal in sunlight, and the floating gardens that smelled faintly of sweet blossoms. But the whispers became harder to ignore. Murmurs of "why him?" or "humans cannot endure this world" brushed against his ears like cold wind. Noticed immediately, she reached for his hand during their walk, her touch grounding him. "Do not let them see you falter," she said quietly. "They have underestimated humans for centuries. Now they watch, waiting for you to fail. Do not give them the satisfaction." Jake nodded, though fear bubbled inside him. He had survived dangers in human sectors, pirate raids, mining collapses, navigation mishaps, but nothing had prepared him for the scrutiny of an entire alien society. Every step felt like walking on thin glass, every glance like judgment. He realized that being chosen was not only an honor, it was a challenge. That evening invited him to meet her council. Alien elders, their skin translucent and glowing, regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and doubt. Their eyes lingered on him longer than polite custom allowed. Jake could feel their skepticism, their unspoken assumptions pressing down on him. "Why claim a human?" one elder asked, voice like a low hum. "Humans are fleeting. They lack the endurance and comprehension of our kind. Are you certain this choice is wise?" Gaze hardened. "I am certain. Human men possess qualities your calculations cannot measure. Courage, resilience, adaptability. They see the impossible and face it anyway. Jake Marshall embodies these traits. That is why I chose him." All eyes turned to Jake. He swallowed, feeling sweat prick his brow. He wanted to flee, to apologize for being ordinary, but steady stare gave him strength. For the first time, he realized that he did not need to prove anything by being someone else. He only needed to prove what humans could do when truly seen and trusted. He began, voice trembling. "I am not extraordinary, but I will try. I will show what humans can do when we are given a chance, when someone believes in us." Silence followed. Then, to his surprise, a few of the elders nodded slightly, as if reconsidering long-held beliefs. Their skepticism softened, just a fraction, enough for Jake to sense that change was possible. Smiled, "See," she whispered later as they walked along the glowing bridges. "They already notice your spirit. The rest will follow. One human can change the way an entire society thinks." Jake's heart swelled. He had never felt such pressure, but he had also never felt such purpose. Humans had always been underestimated, dismissed as weak or inconsequential. Now, for the first time, he carried the hope of proving his species, worth not with words, but with presence, with courage, and with heart. The galaxy was watching him, and Jake Marshall realized he was ready. Ready to face doubt, ready to rise above fear, ready to show that human men were not to be underestimated. The whispers that had once frightened him now fueled him. Every skeptical gaze became a spark, pushing him to rise higher, to endure more, and to embody the very strength that had seen in him. As the twin moons of rose, casting silver light across the city, Jake took a deep breath. The human within him, the ordinary, underestimated man, felt extraordinary for the first time, and he would not let the galaxy forget it. Jake had barely begun to adjust to life when told him about the Sky Gates, a trial no outsider had passed in centuries. The gates were a series of floating arenas suspended high above the city, each designed to test strength, wit, and courage. No human had ever attempted them. Many aliens whispered that he would fail before he even took the first step. Jake felt a surge of fear. He was a simple human, accustomed to freighters and mining ships, not to gravity-defying challenges or alien tests of endurance. His heart raced at the thought of public failure, of confirming every skeptical whisper he had heard. Sensing his doubt, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not think like that," she said softly. "The gates are not about who is tallest, fastest, or longest-lived. They are about spirit, courage, adaptability. You have those in abundance. That is why I claimed you." Her words lit a fire within him. He could either shrink as the galaxy expected or rise. For the first time, he felt not just honored but empowered. "I'll try," he said, voice steady. "I'll show them what humans can do." The next morning, the crowd gathered. Jake stood at the base of the first gate, looking up at the swirling platforms and suspended bridges. Aliens of every shape and size watched, murmuring in disbelief. Some offered him pitying glances, others whispered doubts. Jake felt the weight of every pair of eyes, every century of alien expectation pressing down on him. His gaze found his in the crowd, steady and unwavering. "Remember," she called softly, "they underestimate you because they do not understand humans. Show them." Jake's first steps were cautious. The floating platforms swayed and the air currents threatened to throw him off balance. Every move demanded concentration, every leap required trust in his own instincts. His muscles ached, his lungs burned, and his mind screamed that he was not enough. And yet he pressed on. He remembered words about courage and adaptability. He remembered the humans who had survived impossible odds on mining stations, in war zones, in deep space. They had endured, and so could he. With each step, each leap, each grasping hand onto a swaying platform, he felt the fire inside him grow stronger. Halfway through, a misstep nearly sent him tumbling into the void. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jake froze, heart pounding. Then he remembered her calm voice, the trust in her eyes. He reached deep, gripping a narrow bridge with strength he hadn't known he possessed, swinging himself back onto solid footing. The crowd fell silent. Then murmurs of astonishment began to spread. One by one, the aliens watching realized that this human was not like they had imagined. He did not falter. He did not shrink. He adapted. He endured. By the time he reached the final gate, exhaustion clawed at him, but so did triumph. He stepped forward, raising his hands to steady himself, and completed the trial. Silence enveloped the arena for a moment. Then the crowd erupted in shocked applause, some cheering, others simply staring in awe. Descended from the stands, eyes shining. "You see," she said, taking his hand. "You carried human strength to heights they never expected." Jake smiled, chest heaving, sweat and exhilaration mixing on his skin. For the first time, he realized that humans were not weak, nor insignificant. They endured, they adapted, and when given a chance, they could rise above expectations that had lasted centuries. As the sun dipped below's floating horizon, casting golden light over the city, Jake looked out over the crowd and felt pride swelling in his chest. He had faced the impossible and proven it was not the size or species that mattered. It was courage. It was heart. It was humanity. And in that moment, the galaxy saw what it had known all along. A human man could rise, could endure, and could leave even the most skeptical aliens in awe. The day after the Skygate's trial felt different to Jake. The whispers were no longer doubting. They were curious, respectful, and even awed. Aliens stopped him on streets and bridges, asking questions, seeking advice, or simply watching him pass with admiration. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, dismissed as fragile or insignificant. Now, one human man had changed their perspective. Walked beside him, her hand brushing his casually. "They see you now," she said softly, "but it is not just about strength or endurance. They are beginning to see your heart." Jake smiled, though humility still tugged at him. He had survived the gates, yes, but it was more than physical skill that had impressed them. It was persistence, courage, and the willingness to face the unknown without hiding. Every alien who had doubted him now realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in their bodies, but in their spirit. That afternoon, a delegation of young approached him with a request. They wanted him to help organize training for human adaptability, small exercises that taught aliens how to respond to unpredictability, problem-solve in dangerous situations, and think creatively under pressure. Jake hesitated. He was not a teacher. He had never led anything beyond a mining shift or a freighter crew. Squeezed his shoulder. "You do not need to be perfect," she said. "You only need to be human. That alone will inspire them." Taking a deep breath, Jake agreed. For the first time, he realized that humans' underestimated qualities could be shared, not just proven in a trial, but taught, demonstrated, and admired. And as he worked with the young aliens, guiding them through improvisation and problem-solving, he saw something incredible. Their faces lit with realization as they discovered the value of flexibility, the power of courage, and the spark of humanity they had dismissed. It was exhausting. Every moment required patience, creativity, and empathy. But Jake felt alive in a way he had never known. Every success, every astonished reaction from his students made him prouder than he had ever been in his entire human life. They were learning, growing, and in a way, beginning to understand the value that humans had always carried silently. One evening, after a long day of training, Jake stood on the balcony of her floating tower. The city shimmered beneath them, glowing bridges winding like veins of light. Jake felt a quiet satisfaction settle in his chest, but also a growing sense of connection with. "You were right," he said softly. "It is not just about me surviving the gates. It is about showing them what humans can be, and it feels good to see them understand." Smiled, eyes glimmering with pride. "You are teaching more than skills, Jake. You are teaching respect, hope, and understanding. The galaxy sees what we always knew: humans are remarkable." Jake turned to look at her, heart swelling. In every glance and every gesture reaffirmed what he had been learning all along. Being human was not a weakness. Being human was a gift. And in her eyes he saw admiration that went beyond duty or ritual. It was personal, emotional, and genuine. The whispers of doubt had transformed into a chorus of awe, the skeptical eyes into glimmers of admiration. The galaxy was watching, and Jake Marshall, an ordinary human, had become an extraordinary symbol of courage and humanity. That night, as he lay in his small quarters, he thought about how far he had come. From a man overlooked in the galaxy, to someone claimed by an alien of influence, to a teacher and inspiration for an entire generation of. The journey was only beginning, but he had discovered something vital. Humans could rise not by outmatching others in alien ways, but by being themselves, brave, adaptable, and willing to face the impossible with heart. And as sleep came, he felt a quiet certainty in his chest. The galaxy would not forget this human. Humanity, underestimated for so long, was finally being seen, and Jake Marshall would be the proof life in had begun to feel like a dream, but Jake knew that admiration alone could not secure his place. While many aliens watched him with respect, there were others who whispered behind closed doors, questioning's choice. They doubted a human could survive in a society built for beings far stronger, far longer-lived, far wiser. Some even suggested that it had been reckless, risking prestige for sentiment. Jake felt the tension one afternoon when a delegation of influential elders requested a meeting. Their intent was clear. They wanted to challenge him to test if his reputation was earned or accidental. Fear tightened his chest. The Sky Gates had been one thing, but this was something entirely different. A trial of intellect, diplomacy, and emotional resilience. Held his hand as they entered the grand chamber, her touch steadying him. "Do not fear their doubts," she said softly. "Remember who you are, remember why I claimed you. You do not need to match them in years or power, you need to match them in courage." Jake nodded, drawing a deep breath. He faced the elders, meeting each of their scrutinizing gazes. They began with questions designed to unsettle him, complex negotiations, ethical dilemmas, scenarios requiring foresight beyond human. Jake's first instinct was panic, but he remembered the countless human challenges he had faced, narrow escapes, impossible repairs, last-minute decisions that had saved lives. He drew on that experience, translating it into logic, empathy, and creativity that the aliens could respect. Some elders exchanged quiet glances, surprised at his answers. He spoke plainly, honestly, and without pretense. Where they expected hesitation or weakness, they saw clarity and courage. Where they expected ignorance, they saw instinct honed by adversity. And slowly, one by one, the skeptical expressions softened. Sighs never left him, shining with pride and quiet encouragement. Each glance reminded him that this trial was more than a challenge of skill. It was a test of humanity itself. Humans had survived in a universe that constantly underestimated them. Humans had endured because they never gave up, even when odds were impossible. And now, in this chamber of doubt, Jake was proving that resilience was not measured by our strength, but by spirit. Hours passed, and by the end, the room was silent. Then one elder, older and more powerful than the rest, leaned forward. "You have surprised us, human," he said slowly, voice heavy with deliberation. "Perhaps we have underestimated your kind. Perhaps we were wrong." The other elders nodded, murmuring agreement. Jake exhaled, a mix of relief and pride flooding him. He had faced their doubts not with arrogance, not with strength alone, but with honesty and the human heart. He realized that humans were not measured by alien standards. They were measured by their persistence, compassion, and courage. Later, walking through the floating gardens with, Jake felt the enormity of what had happened. He had survived scrutiny far greater than the sky gates. He had changed minds, reshaped assumptions, and left a mark that would ripple through for generations. Brushed a lock of shimmering hair from his face. "You see now?" she asked softly. "Strength is not only about power, it is about standing tall when everyone doubts you, about showing courage when others expect you to fail. You have done more than survive, Jake. You have inspired them." Jake smiled, chest swelling with emotion. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had long overlooked his kind. Humans could rise, not by matching aliens in what they could do, but by showing what humans could be: resilient, adaptable, brave, and unyielding. As the twin moons rose over the city, their silver light reflecting in the gardens, Jake felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. Had claimed him, yes, but the galaxy had begun to recognize him too. And in that recognition, he found purpose, pride, and the quiet, unshakable truth that humans, underestimated for centuries, could change worlds. And for Jake Marshall, that was only the beginning. The city have shimmered under the light of twin moons, a cascade of colors reflecting on the floating towers and glowing bridges. Jake Marshall walked beside, hand in hand, feeling a calm he had never known. The trials, the scrutiny, the whispers, they were all behind him now. What remained was recognition, not just but from an entire society that had begun to see humans differently. Word of his accomplishments had spread far beyond. Delegates from other star systems, curious and cautious, came to observe the human who had expectations. Jake was no longer just an individual. He was a symbol, a living testament that humanity, long underestimated, could rise and leave an impact that could not be ignored. As he reached the balcony overlooking the central plaza, they paused. Below them, aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the streets, many stopping to bow, nod, or simply watch with newfound respect. Murmurs of admiration floated through the air. Jake's heart swelled. He had survived the impossible trials, faced doubt, and endured challenges far beyond what anyone had thought a human could achieve. Squeezed his hand gently. "Do you see?" she said, her voice soft but certain. "They understand now. You have shown them what it means to be human, Courage, resilience, heart, these are strengths that no or alien ability can surpass. You have proven it. Jake looked down at the plaza and then at eyes meeting hers. For a long moment, words failed him. How could he express what he felt? Pride, humility, love, and an overwhelming sense of purpose mingled in a way that made his chest ache with emotion. Finally, he spoke. "I never thought I could mean so much," he said quietly. "I never thought humans could be seen this way, but with you, with everything I've faced, I see now, we can matter, we can rise, we can change how the galaxy thinks." Smiled, her violet eyes glowing in the moonlight. "You have already done that, Jake, and more. You've shown that being human is not a weakness, it is a gift." A sudden cheer rose from the plaza below. Jake turned to see crowds of aliens approaching, some carrying banners of respect, others simply smiling, all recognizing him not for power or wealth, but for heart and courage. The realization hit him in waves. This was not just admiration for his accomplishments, it was recognition of humanity itself. For centuries, humans had been dismissed. For centuries, they had been underestimated. Now the galaxy was seeing what it had known all along. Leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. "They see us," she whispered, "and you have made them see the best of your kind." Jake closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of her presence and the weight of centuries of doubt lifting. He had faced trials that tested body and mind, scrutiny that challenged his confidence, and a society that had doubted him from the start. And yet here he stood, not because he was the strongest or the fastest, but because he had embraced what it meant to be human, resilient, adaptable, and courageous. He opened his eyes and looked across the city one last time. The lights of the faces of those who now respected him, and by his side, all of it filled him with quiet triumph. Humans were no longer invisible. Humans could rise, inspire, and shape the galaxy in ways that no alien could predict. Squeezed his hand one final time. "Come," she said softly, "let's face the future together." Jake nodded, feeling the pulse of the city, the galaxy, and his own heart in perfect harmony. For the first time, he felt wholly seen, wholly valued, and wholly human. And as the twin moons bathed them in silver light, Jake Marshall realized the truth he had always suspected but never fully known. Humanity, underestimated for centuries, was finally recognized, and he, in all his ordinary glory, had helped the galaxy see it. The galaxy had changed, and so had he.